Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Preseason 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering AD carry Tristana, the Yordle Gunner.
Once a Bandle Gunner, always a Bandle Gunner.
Alright, so let's hop right into this guide as per usual with Tristana's pros and her cons. So Tristana is a champion with a pretty damn good auto attack range. Now this does scale as the game progresses. It starts off kinda low, but in the late game she has a very long auto attack range. She's also a fast pusher because of her E ability, which does explode, dealing damage to nearby minions, and she can also place a bomb from this ability on towers as well, which completely melts them. Now Tristana also has a built-in escape ability that does get reset every time you get a kill or assist, so you can use this to jump around a team fight and be pretty safe or engage into enemies. Then finally, Tristana with her very long auto attack range and her attack speed steroid is a very strong late game carry. Now just like all the other AD carries out there, she is however pretty squishy. She goes for a very high damage and fragile build, so if assassins get on top of her, she's not going to live that long. She's also a champion that automatically pushes the lane because of her E ability, and this can also make CSing tricky. And finally, her escape ability can be interrupted. She will be able to jump away from something like a Thresh or a Blitzcrank, but they will be able to hook her mid-air, so you have to keep that in mind. For your runes, you want to go for Precision and Domination, grabbing Fleet Footwork as your keystone. You could of course go for Press the Attack as well, but Fleet Footwork is something the pro players are taking right now on Tristana, and for a good reason. It'll give her some really nice extra mobility, and it will work great with the rest of your runes here that will give you some nice lane sustain. So for those other runes, you want to go for Overheal so your excess healing becomes a shield, kinda like a built-in Bloodthirster. Then go for Legend Bloodline so your takedowns give you permanent lifesteal, and Coup de Grace so you deal more damage to low health enemies, great with your ultimate. Then in the domination side, you want to go for Taste of Blood so you get healing whenever you damage an enemy champion, and Ravenous Hunter so you're granted permanent healing from ability damage. When you take all these runes and you start with a Relic Shield in the lane phase, you're going to have an insane amount of lane sustain, and it's going to be very, very hard to push Tristana out of lane. It's very, very strong on Tristana and makes her a big time bully in the lane phase. For your summoner spells, you want to stick with the normal AD carry setup and take Flash and Heal. Flash is a 100% requirement on Tristana since she's a squishy AD carry and it can save your life multiple times throughout a single game. Now you can also use this offensively to engage from a really long distance with your rocket jump. Then you even have the option of flashing forward and using your buster shot to knock an enemy into your team so they can all delete them. Now as for that second summoner spell, Heal is also a requirement because it can be used to save both yourself and your teammates. The bonus movement speed on activation is also great for escaping or chasing if you do need that extra speed boost. Your passive ability is Draw a Bead, which is a scaling range passive that does make Tristana one of the longest range AD carries in the game. The range of Tristana's basic attacks, Explosive Charge, and Buster Shot is increased by 0 to 119 based on level for a total of 550 to 669 based on level range. So with this passive, Tristana already starts at a pretty decent range, but as the game goes on, she will have a bigger and bigger range, making her an even safer AD carry. This makes her one of the best siegers in the game as well, because she will be able to drop a bomb on a tower which is already strong enough, but she'll also have the range to auto attack it. Of course, this range is also going to be more than most AD carries out there unless it's something like a Kogmaw with a W activated, so you'll also be able to fight them from a really long range. Keep in mind that this does also work with your E and your ultimate as well, not just your basic attack, so make sure you're using those from range as well. Your Q ability is Rapid Fire, which is your attack speed steroid that really increases Tristana's damage. So when activated, very simply, Tristana gains bonus attack speed for 7 seconds. So this ability has a scaling attack speed of between 30 and 110%, so it can add a ton of damage if you have a lot of points in it. Now the cooldown is rather long at between 20 and 16 seconds however, so you have to be very careful when you do activate this ability. In a team fight, you'll want to wait until the enemy team kind of engages into yours and you know you're going to be able to get off some auto attacks. If you do it too early on, the enemy may see this and jump on you instantly and just delete you. Make sure you position properly in the backline, and when you see your opportunity, activate this ability and pump out as much damage as you can. Now this does also work great with your E ability because it does require a bunch of auto attacks to make the damage insane, so if you are pushing towers or anything like that, make sure you use your E and then activate this to proc that bomb. Your W ability is Rocket Jump, which is your built-in escape ability that you can always use as well to engage onto the enemies. When activated, Tristana dashes to the target location, dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies on impact and slowing them by 60%. Whenever Tristana takes down an enemy champion or detonates Explosive Charge at maximum stacks on an enemy champion, Rocket Jump's cooldown is reset. So this here is a really solid ability because first of all, it is a built-in escape and has a 900 range, so it's great to jump away from enemies trying to get on top of you. The thing you have to keep in mind, however, is it can be interrupted mid-air, so if you're against something like a Thresh or a Blitzcrank, they can always pull you while you are mid-jump. Now this is also great as an engage tool because if the enemy is low or something and you want to jump on top of them, use this, they will get slowed by 60% for up to 3 seconds, and you can easily get off a bomb in that duration. Usually I'll use it as an escape, but it's also great as an engage. Your E ability is Explosive Charge, which gives you some really nice wave clear and is also great for bursting down targets and towers. Passively, enemies explode when slain by basic attacks, dealing damage to nearby enemies. When activated, Tristana places an Explosive Charge on the target enemy or turret. After 4 seconds, the charge explodes, dealing physical damage to enemies. The explosion size is twice as big if it is used on a turret. Tristana's basic attacks and abilities against the target increase explosive charges damage by 30%, stacking up to 4 times for a maximum 120% increase, and will detonate instantly. So this here is a fairly strong ability because it's great in the early game for clearing through minion waves, and it gives you a big chunk of damage on enemies and can really shred towers. So whenever you are going for an engage on an enemy, you want to make sure you put this ability on top of them first, activate your Q to get a bunch of attacks to stack the damage, and watch it detonate for a ton of damage. Of course, whenever you're going for an objective like a tower or something, make sure you put this on top, activate the Q yet again, and explode it to take it down really quickly. And that brings us to our ultimate Buster Shot, which does do a big chunk of damage and is great for pushing away targets. When activated, Tristana fires a massive cannonball at the target enemy, dealing them magic damage and knocking back the target and all enemies around them. Now this is a pretty nice ability, however the damage is based on your AP, so it's not going to do a lot of damage as an AD carry Tristana. The knockback distance of between 600 and 1000 is actually really strong though, because this gives Tristana a self-peel. Of course, it does also count as an attack, so you can use this to proc the last part on your bomb and do a big chunk of damage instantly. Of course, as I mentioned as well on the summoners page, you can always use this in combo with either your W or your flash to jump behind a target and push them into your team with this ability. This is a great way to get a kill on a squishy target and have a big advantage in a team fight. As long as you get a kill or assist on that target, your W will be reset and you can jump back out. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then focus on maxing your E ability first because it's great at pushing minion waves and farming, and it gives you some really nice burst damage and is also great for shredding towers. You then want to focus on maxing your Q ability second because it is a scaling attack speed steroid and it's a great way to get a bunch of auto attacks out quickly and proc a really big bomb. Now that of course means you have to save your W ability for last, but make sure you take a point early on and at level 2 so you have that really reliable escape and a great way to engage into the enemy. Alright, now let's look at some of your support synergies, and first up is Blitzcrank. As long as you can pull in targets and knock them up, you'll be able to jump on top of them with your W, put your E on them, activate your Q, and proc a really big bomb, and burst them down. Of course, if he is level 6, he's also going to be able to silence the target, doing even more damage and making sure they can't go anywhere. He doesn't give you any extra sustain or anything like that, however, but as long as you can pull in targets, you guys have a lot of kill pressure. Next here I have Johna, which does make for a more passive lane, but you'll be able to safely farm with all of her shields and peeling, and easily get all the farm you need. So therefore, just play pretty passively, pick up as much farm as possible, and trade whenever she shields you. As long as she can keep you safe throughout the lane phase, you can get a pretty decent amount of farm, you will have a pretty nice attack range because of your level, and of course a bunch of items to delete targets. Next would be Leona, which makes for another aggressive all-in lane. You'll be wanting to wait for her to land either her E ability or an ultimate on the enemy champions, and then it's time to engage. She does a pretty decent amount of burst damage and can hold targets in an area for a pretty long time, so you want to jump on top of them with your W, put your E on, activate your Q, and get off a bunch of autos. You guys have some pretty damn strong burst damage together, so try to all in the enemy and burst them down. And the last really strong synergy would be Nami. She works great with Tristana because as long as she can land her bubble, Tristana will be able to follow up on that and do a bunch of damage for free. Nami can also use that bubble to keep Tristana safe and of course peel for her with her ultimate as well. Then finally, she has a pretty damn strong heal as well, so Tristana will be able to play pretty aggressively and rely on that heal coming through. During the lane phase, I first like to push the minion wave to hit level 2 before the enemy bot lane. This is going to be pretty easy to do on Tristana because of your explosive shot. Once you're level 2, you want to try to get your explosive shot on the enemy AD carry and then auto them until it blows up. You can take your rapid fire at level 2 if you wish for the attack speed, but usually I like to grab my rocket jump so I can all in the enemy or use it as an escape if I do get ganked by the enemy jungler. You are still, however, a very strong late game carry, so try to prioritize farming as much as you can. When you do see an opportunity, however, between CS, make sure you auto attack the enemy for free damage. Tristana is a fairly strong team fighter due to her long auto attack range, attack speed steroid, and the fact that she can self-peel with her buster shot and escape with her rocket jump. I'll usually hold on to my rocket jump for its defensive use unless I know I can get the reset if I use it to engage into the enemy. This will be as long as you get a kill or assist or blow up a full explosive shot. I'll then usually hold on to my buster shot for a defensive peel as well unless I know I can finish off an enemy. It's very strong in a situation where you can peel an assassin off yourself, so make sure it is available. Alright, now let's look at those hard matchups, and first up is Ezreal. Now the reason Ezreal is going to be hard for you is because he'll be able to poke you throughout the lane phase with his Q ability rather safely, and he is a strong duelist. That means if you guys are rather even in items, you don't really want to fight him in the mid game. In the late game, you do have a chance, but not really in the mid game. Therefore, make sure you're behind minions so you're not getting poked by his Q ability, and just get as much farm as you can so you can fight him in the late game. Next up here, I've got Kogmaw. Now the reason he can be pretty hard for you is because when he activates his W, his range is even longer than yours, so he will be able to outdamage you from a longer range. Now he is also an insanely strong late game champion, so you may not want to try to make it to the late game, try to finish it by the early and mid game. He's not the strongest early on, so try to use your burst damage to deal with him early on, and all in him with your support champion. Next would be Miss Fortune, who's a really strong early and mid game champion that will be able to bully you. Her bounce shot's also going to do some insane damage, so make sure you're not behind minions, especially when they're low, because if it bounces, it's going to take half your health out. Now you are definitely a better late game hyper carry, so you want to focus on getting as much farm as possible, get your items, and then you can delete Miss Fortune rather easily in the late game. And now finally we've got Vayne. Now Vayne's not going to be that hard to deal with early on in the game, so you want to try to bully her as much as possible, and if you can, get some early kills on her. In the mid and late game, however, she becomes a ridiculous duelist as long as she gets some items, and you're not going to really be able to 1v1 a Vayne pretty much ever. Therefore, you're going to want to try to get an early lead on Vayne, and make sure you don't 1v1 Vayne, you're probably going to lose. Alright, so with that covered, that brings us to our item build, which starts with either a Relic Shield, Health Potions, and a Warding Totem, or a Doran's Blade, Health Potion, and a Warding Totem. Now with this rune setup, I'll pretty much always go for the Relic Shield because it gives you some really nice sustain, and of course works with that overhealing. It'll also give your support some extra sustain and gold, so it's also great in that matter. If however you just want as much kill pressure as possible, or you did take press the attack or something, Doran's Blade is what you'd want to go for usually. Now for that core build though, you want to go for an Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, and a Rapid Fire Cannon. You're going to have 80% critical strike chance already with a bunch of attack speed, increased critical damage, and some nice attack damage at the same time. With just this core build, Tristana's already going to be pumping out all sorts of damage and can already carry games. Then for your boot options, if you want to increase your damage, you can go for Berserker Greaves for that attack speed, or Ninja Tabis if you wanted a defensive and wanted some extra armor. Now for the item pool, you first have two lifesteal options in both the Mercurial Scimitar or the Bloodthirster. If I am choosing one, I'll usually go for the Mercurial Scimitar because you pretty much already have a Bloodthirster anyways with that shield that you have, and the Mercurial Scimitar is a really solid defensive to break crowd controls. Either way though, the Bloodthirster is still a really solid item and definitely viable. If you then wanted a really nice defensive and great offensive, you could go for the Guardian Angel. This is a really solid item on AD carries because it does of course give you a bunch of attack damage and also the ability to come back to life in the later stages of the game if you do end up dying. If you then needed some armor penetration, you can get either the LDR or the Mortal Reminder. If I am choosing one, I'll pretty much always go for the LDR, but if you do need the Grievous Wounds because you're against something like a Soraka or a Mundo or something like that, then you will need the Mortal Reminder. Then finally, if there is some AP assassins on the enemy team, you could always pick up a Maw. This yet again will give you some really nice attack damage, but you will also have a really nice defensive shield if you do dip low from magic damage, giving you some really nice survivability. For my example full build though, I take that core build with some Berserker Greaves and then a Mercurial Scimitar and an LDR. You will have a really high amount of damage from all this attack damage, armor penetration, critical strike chance, attack speed, and critical damage, and you will also have some nice lifesteal and the ability to break out of a crowd control. It's a very strong build and one you can definitely carry a game with. And that's all I've got for Tristana in Season 8. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching, I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.